Hey guys, welcome back to Master Game Studios. I'm Craig, and today we've got a bit of a different video for you guys, but hopefully one that's still entertaining to spark up a conversation. I'm going to talk about why, for some people, 40k might not be fun right now. 10th edition, I've heard a lot of comments about people saying, and seen a lot of videos about people saying they don't like 10th edition right now. There's a lot of things that, are stale or something like that. I'll get into those reasons later. I'm not going to call out any specific channel or anything because their opinions are their own. I don't care. They can think the way they want. But I'm also going to reel it in, give some counters to specific arguments, agree with some, counters to others, and maybe for you, if you're in that situation, some suggestions on maybe how to spice up 40k a little bit for you guys to make it fun for everyone, and maybe add some variety, whatever the case is. I have my options here. So if you're interested, do like, subscribe to stay up on all of our content. Typically, we cover Tyranid stuff here as the main focus, but I do like to branch out, do some general topic stuff as well with our battle reports and with these videos. So thank you guys. Thank you members for supporting us, and let's dive into today's video. So I hinted on a little bit why I'm bringing this up is I have seen a number of, whether it's YouTube comments, not so much on my channel, but on other channels and general videos of people just not enjoying 10th edition 40k as much as they have hoped they would. And I guess there's a lot of things that come to that. There's a lot of different people in 40k right now. And what I mean by that is you've got people who are brand new to the hobby, just joining maybe Tyranids or their first army because they were the launch faction this year. Or you've got people who have been playing since 8th edition when it kind of, I will say, a reboot to 40k was 8th edition. Or you have people who are maybe like me who have been playing since 5th edition. And there's even people who've been playing before that. So there's a lot of different sweeps of 40k, different ways that it's been played throughout the years. So maybe this resonates with some people more than others, but it's just, I've been seeing a lot of it. Maybe some of it sparked by there being a bit of a 40k hiatus from GW for this back third of the year. They have had the Blood Angels stuff come out separately and some other random things here and there, but nothing new, and there won't be anything new until probably sometime mid-January. This coming January, so a few months still. We'll see, but maybe that's sparking the hiatus a little bit, is sparking it because people are like, well, there's nothing new, so what do we do now? So I'll talk about it a little bit. First off, some reasons I've seen, I've kind of put these together of what I've been seeing people don't like. I'll kind of talk about each one individually and then maybe give my thoughts on it, and then I'll come back to it. So the first, every game feels like the same thing. And that one, I totally understand where they're coming from. You have the Pariah Nexus Tournament Pack, which is a fantastic way to play 40k. I think it's like 18 missions, and each one of those missions has some variety of terrain layout, suggested terrain layout, primary mission, mission rule, and I guess that's it. And then you have the secondary cards. However, it is common that if you play tournaments, yes, there are 18 missions, but it seems like it's only about 8 of those that are played regularly. And because of that, also with GW terrain, every map might have the same or similar terrain layout. So it feels like you go to your game, same layout, you set up, your opponent sets up, you set up the same way depending on the terrain layout every time, and you play your game. And I totally get how that can be the same thing because it looks the same, it kind of feels the same. And then there's just, it's L-shaped ruins all across the board. And that makes sense. And I totally agree with that. If you are just someone who plays tournaments all the time, I can see where that gets a bit stale. And I agree with it. Going on the back of that, that kind of goes along with GW terrain is balanced but stale. And yes, the L-shaped ruins are fantastic. Because there's a wide variety of models and weapons and rules in the game that you need to have some level of, okay, I can't snipe you from across the map, because that can create a feels bad moment if some, tank with a giant cannon shoots your really cool unit that you thought was hidden, but they can see him through the window. So you have to have some rules like that, and I get it. 40K is a lethal game. 9th edition was super lethal, and they tried to tone it down. I think their goal was to tone it down, but it feels like it just went from here, maybe a step below. It's nowhere near down here, which maybe if you guys are veterans of the game, I think 5th edition lethality is maybe at the, I can't get my hand with the camera angle. There we go. 5th edition lethality was maybe here. 9th edition was way up here, and I think 10th is just a bit below. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but that's what I remember from 5th edition. So they tried to tone that down. The terrain does help if you play it that way, but if you play just a whole bunch of L-shaped runes, it does get stale. Another thing that people have talked about is the lack of customization or personality in the game a little bit. A lot of the units are fixed loadouts. There's no longer, here's my 7-man squad of Marines who the sergeant has his flamer pistol and chainsword because that was the way it worked. Two parts with that. One of them is because of the fixed loadouts isn't a problem. You know, you take your 5-man squads, your 10-man squads, they cost this many points, upgrade them how you want. And then stemmed from that is the fact that your units, no matter their upgrade, cost the same amount of points. And that, I think, I'm okay more so with the fixed loadout, so 5, 10-man squads, whatever the case is, 3 or 6 GW's doing with a lot of elite stuff these days. But the points on some things where it's like, okay, a lot of arguments people go to is, you know, the Space Marine captain, or not the captain, Space Marine sergeant, intercessor sergeant, or a commissar, where a plasma pistol and a power fist is the same price as a bolt pistol and a combat knife or something like that. And why wouldn't you take the better weapons if they're the same cost? And back in older editions, especially way back, the reason you took that power fist or that plasma pistol is you were willing to pay the extra 10, 15 points for both of those weapons was because they were, you know, they had a story behind them. They were powerful. They were, you know, this was my sergeant. He needed his power fist or whatever. And maybe just did the power fist and the bolt pistol. You only had so many points. There was an element to list building where it was, okay, you know, if I cut this unit down a little bit, I can squeeze in the power fist, or I can squeeze in the thunder hammer, or I can fit a storm shield on my guy. And it feels like that level of customizing your army to do what you want is gone. The other part to that is, okay, I have, you know, I think of the best way to put it is, in Tyranids' perspective, you have a ton of different ranged weapons for the Tyranid warriors. Really, it's been ironed out to Death Spitters, Venom Cannons, and Barb Stranglers. Barb Stranglers and Venom Cannons are the heavy weapons, and typically you paid for those because there were more points. You paid extra for them. But now it's like, why wouldn't you take the heavy weapons if you just, instead of the why wouldn't you take the heavy weapons instead of the Death Spitters? They are better in just about every regard. They are higher damage, more shots, more AP, whatever the case is. And you can take 2 of those for every 3. Where in today, or in older times, you would not just put 2 heavy weapons on a 3-man squad. You probably wouldn't put any because that 3-man squad is just there as a little support unit. So that and another unit comes to mind are like Eldar Warwalkers. You know, you could take a bunch of Shuriken cannons and just be this cheap move around the board DACA unit, or you could take 2 Bright Lances. The effectiveness of the Bright Lance is significantly more than the little Shuriken cannons, so the Bright Lance option should be more, but now they have to price the unit up to its maximum potential, so the other unit or other options are let off the side. So that's a thing I do have an issue with. I really, really wish they would add that level of customization or point customization back a little bit. Yeah. The next thing that people have issues with, and this is, I'll do this one, the psychic phase. I don't hear this one a ton, but I hear it a little bit, and I specifically being a Tyranid player, I do miss the psychic phase. There was something really fun about having your list of potential psychic powers and planning which psyker is going to do what role in your army and which psychic power is going to benefit him that way. Where it is now is just, oh, on a 2+, I get this ability. Or my model just has this aura because he's psychic or whatever. It's cool, and I'm not bashing the psychic powers because the psychic powers are really good in 10th edition. I mean, the Tyranid Hive Tyrant, the lethal and assault bubble is fantastic. The winged Hive Tyrant, though, you have to roll for it. The reducing attacks of enemies within range of it is cool. You've got a lot of the smites and stuff that are in Vortexes of Doom, which are powerful. But I miss the psychic phase a little bit. I like the perils, rolling to pass your leadership, maybe you perils or whatever. It was fun, and I really miss the customization of choosing what psychic powers each psyker was going to have. Though you could argue the whole psychic phase and that adds some bookkeeping to the game. I don't know. I miss it. I miss it a lot. And then one more bit is that in general, kind of encapsulating a lot of these changes is that it feels like the game has become a lot more, like chess or checkers instead of the narrative game of 40K that is really what it has been in the past. It's fine, but it really is just like, how do I opt? And part of that comes from tournament play. Obviously, they're gearing towards that. They get a lot of money and hype in the tournaments. I love tournaments, so I'm not bashing them for it, but it really does become, my loadouts are just, XY. There's no XYZ, ABC type of thing. It's just pick your models, line them up on the same table. The tables are mirrored, so there's not, there's no advantage one way versus the other. It's just line them up, mirrored match against each other, and see who moves their models and who rolls the dice better in the game. And yes, there is strategy to it. There is great tactics. There's obviously a skill gap that separates the amazing players from the okay players. But in the same, it does not feel like, building a story, playing the game on the tabletop, playing out a fun mission. And a lot of people complain about that. But that one, I do have to disagree with, because that is tournament play. And I'll talk about this later, but there are so many other ways to play 40K that you just have to try and look at that will fix this issue. So that's the one thing I do disagree with. A lot of complaints is that I don't want to say they're not trying to play narrative, but there are other ways they probably haven't explored yet. And finally, for issues with the game is the way the rules are released. And with the app coming out, initially, it was a fantastic step in the right direction for GW. You paid for the app. At first, it was a little buggy, but they ironed that out pretty quick. And you had all of the rules there. You could make your lists, do whatever. It was fantastic. But then when the codexes came out, now the codexes, you had to put in the code. And then it locked the rules for anybody else except for the people who had the code. So now if you wanted to look at your opponent's rules to confirm something, you couldn't unless you had their codex, unless you're someone who runs a YouTube channel like me or other people who have access to a lot of the codexes because we buy them for the channel. You don't have those rules. And it's really annoying if you just want to say, oh, what happened if I put these units together in a list? And, well, you can't see the rules or whatever. So I don't, plus, on top of that, paying for the app, which I think is a good deal because you get all the other Warhammer Plus stuff, it's the paying for the codexes. And the codexes are expensive at $60. And with the app, you don't look at the codex all that much. I'm looking up at my shelf up there. I have a ton of codexes. And I think I look at each of them never. A couple times, maybe I like to have my codex with me if I'm playing a battle report. But at the same time, if you learn the app really well, you can change the data sheets and get through them super quick and just find the rules, especially for the core rulebook. So GW does need to fix something here. I'm hoping, money talks. So I'm hoping that people are not buying codexes as much and that Hopefully they see that in their sales, people not buying the codexes as much, using other alternative platforms for your list building. Battlescribe is one I'll shout out. There's Wahapedia, which are good ones for finding your rules. They typically stay as up to date as possible, but there's some lag because they are crowdfunded doing or maybe even just a single guy updating them. So there's issues with that. But I hope GW comes out with digital codexes / codes all in one. So maybe you pay $40 for it. Maybe they cut their amount of codexes they make in half. Something a lot of people don't consider when they think about the codexes is that they have to print them a long time in the future to plan for, printing time and then shipping time and then delivery and all of that. And there's a whole lot of, and if you buy, X amount of copies, then you get X amount of discount on their thing. Obviously, they got deals worked out with their suppliers, but there's some element that's probably holding them back from doing it. That if they cut their codex production down by so much, maybe it becomes less worth it. And, part of me hopes that we are in 2024, almost 2025. So much is digital these days. I personally love a physical copy. I do. There's something nice about flipping through the pages than tapping on a phone. It's just one less reason to look at your phone all the time. But if you could buy a digital app or a digital codex for half the cost, I would pay half. I would pay $30 for digital rules and a digital codex, and then have a printer-friendly version, and you can go get it printed for $10 or something if you want. Maybe $30 a lot. $20 for it. So you pay for the app, you pay for the codex, get your code, and then you can pay extra if you want the physical book. Go to your local FedEx store or Kinko's or whatever they're called these days and print it off there, 3-hole punch it, put it in a binder, and you're good. That's the way I wish they would do it. There are other ways. I'm not behind the scenes with GW, so I don't know the numbers. I'm curious to see what their profit margins really are on the codexes. Are they a substantial portion of their profits? They must be, and that's why they still do them. It must be a substantial portion of their profits, and that has to be why they keep doing it. Otherwise, if they could just cut codexes, make all the rules free, you'll wonder if there's a trade-off to there being a larger influx of people coming into the game, because you don't have to buy a codex. You just pay for the app, and the app gives you all the rules. Maybe then it's you get more people. I mean, that's one more unit you can buy, one less book. And that way, final rant about this, you don't have an AdMech Codex issue where I bought my AdMech Codex. I used it and the whole army 3-4 times, and then I, put them away, played Tyranids a lot, and then they completely updated the Codex. Tons of rule changes, point changes. Yeah, we don't need to talk about that, but a bunch of point changes, physical rules and text that have been changed. And now I look at my book that I paid $60 for. It's not right. It's out of date. I can't get a new updated one. I could go in and manually change all the stuff. What if they change it again? So if they did just a digital rule set, where you pay, even if you pay $10 a month is a lot. Maybe you pay $7.50 a month or something, and you have all access to all the rules. You have to wonder if that type of money would make up for the lack of not doing the codexes or something. And you could still, maybe you can do a print on demand. Maybe GW does, hey, if you want a codex, maybe they have a stockpile of them at their warehouses. Not a ton of them, but maybe they have a way to print them and make them themselves that's efficient. Or maybe they make X amount of them, and you can buy a physical one if you want, if you so need it, like they do with the limited edition ones. If you want to have the physical codex, then do it. But yeah, they need to do something in that regard. And that's my biggest issue too, though I understand I'm in a more fortunate position than most when it comes to buying a lot of the codexes. So I think that covers all of the reasons I and or people dislike what's going on right now. But let's start off with, let's continue on a positive note for the second part of this video. And God, I can see we're already 20 minutes into this. So apologies, but hopefully you're enjoying the rant. So my biggest thing is, if people are complaining about this game being stale or boring or not really feeling like the narrative that they want, I implore you to try something different with 40K, because matched play, 2,000 point games, tournament pack is not the only way to play 40K. It is, and it might not even be, I mean, it's good if you go up your opponent and say, who's the best? Who's got the best matchup? Sure. But if you are someone who says, I want to have fun with the game, I want to tell a story with the game, I want to play, just have fun, don't care about the outcome, let's get into this, because this is other ways to play 40K that I think you should consider. So first off, GW has a great Crusade system in the core rulebook, and then they have bits in every codex to stack onto that for the factions. Try the Crusade game. I did one. I'll admit I haven't done one 10th edition. Well, no, I have done one small one in 10th edition. I did a couple in 9th edition, and they were fun. You know, you're just having a fun time. You're playing your game. You still play out your missions, and your army gets to grow, and you get to have a little bit more story with it. Personally, for me, I try to play other armies than Tyranids in that, because I don't know. I just, Tyranids are the hive mind. They just consume. I don't feel as much as like a story of the hive mind or of a specific unit growing with the Tyranids. It just doesn't jive with me. Genestealer Cult I typically play if it's something like that a bit more. So with Crusade games, there are also a ton of Crusade missions, which are more narrative based. You know, the deployment zones are not just the staggered, you know, diagonals or Hammer and Anvil or Dawn of War. You know, there might be one where one army deploys in the center of the board and the enemy comes on the edge. Or maybe you're deployed down the center, or you have this weird U shape and you have to protect certain objectives. It could be a lot of different ways to play. So GW has some on their download page of different missions and stuff. Try those out, but also just take some out of the Crusade book. If you just want to play, you know, you can modify them. Say play a 2,000 point game with the Crusade mission rules, or just the Crusade missions. Try that one out instead. If you play a lot of tournament games or you get bored of them, that is your option. Now, if you're on the other side of things, maybe you play a ton of narrative games or a ton of, you know, fluffy whatever type games. I would encourage you to try a tournament. Most tournaments, if you go play in an RTT, they are pretty casual. You will have, you know, let's say there are 20 people at an RTT. You will have your top third are probably people who've got a nasty list and they might try and win it. You've got the rest of the people, or I'd say the next third, not necessarily the bottom third, but a third of people who they're just trying something out. They say, this list, I want to try, you know, I've been trying these things and it does well, but I want to add a couple new units and see how they do. Maybe the list does well, maybe not. They just want to get a bunch of games in and have some fun. And then you got the bottom third people who are like, I'm just here to have fun. I want to throw 4 knights on the table and go smashing, or I want to throw 150 termagants on the table and just have a fun time. You've got that. The beauty with the tournaments is you play, you go up, you try, you meet someone new, you try a totally different matchup. Maybe you've never played against Sisters of Battle or Adeptus Sororitas before. You go to a tournament, bam, maybe you get to play them. It's a whole new matchup. It's not the same thing as playing against your same buddy in the basement the whole time. It's a new matchup, and if you lose your first game, well then in your next game, you'll go up against somebody who lost. Maybe it's more even match. If you lose again, you go up against somebody who match. Hopefully you can just learn tactics, talk to your opponent, meet some new people. I do encourage everyone to try tournaments, at least the RTTs, the small casual ones, because they are a lot of fun. It is fun to just play 3 games and have fun, talk with friends, get to really meet the people in your community and grow the community. So I do encourage it. And then finally, there's 2 other things to talk about. So we've kind of talked about Crusade and tournament, but there's even more. If you're playing just in your basement with your buddy, but you still want, you know, maybe some matched play or some other styles of gameplay, first I would say try Combat Patrol. Every faction has at least, I think, 2 Combat Patrol lists you can try. They're super quick to set up, super quick to play. Maybe you've got some people who are newer to 40K and you just try them. I played a couple Combat Patrol recently, and they're fun. They're quick, they're fun. Just something to spice it up. Another thing that I consider, and I've done this in many, many editions, is try playing a 1,500 point game on a 2,000 point board. What you'll find when you do this is that the game in some ways it's less lethal and it's slower paced because you have 500 points that is not being used in the same, or actually I say 1,000 points. So instead you've got 4,000 points combining on this big table, as you can see behind me. You'll have, 25% less when you do that with 3,000. So that's less units that can do actions. That's less points that can be towards your giant, hammer in the middle of the board. It allows for a bit more of a slower paced and more, I don't know if relaxed is the right term, but just it just provides a different feel to the game. You can still set it up like a normal 2,000 point game again. You can do that. But if you just do 1,500 points, it makes you think a little bit different. You have to pick and choose what models are in your list and how you play them on the board. So I would encourage you to try it. I think it's a underrated way to play 40K right now, is playing the smaller but still competitive games. And finally, there's another game mode. This one's harder because not everyone has access to the board, but if you play boarding action, that is a fun way to play 40K that has well-defined, written out rules that you can use your current collection that you have in it. Now, yes, you have to have the board, and you have to have it with all the walls and stuff, so maybe you don't have it. Again, so it's a bit more niche, but if you have access to walls or anything, I think you can find the rules online for free, not technically through GW, but elsewhere. You can get these rules. I consider it when we played it in 9th edition a ton, and I've tried it once, and we're going to be doing some more of it soon in 10th edition. It was a really fun way to play, and it was quick to play as well. So you can knock out a couple games in an afternoon with, if you've got 2 buddies, or maybe you've got 4 friends or 3 friends and you could set up 2 tables side by side maybe, or you can take turns or do something. There's a lot of ways you can play with boarding action there. And finally, if none of that is working for you, I am going to non-sponsored shout out to Poor Hammer and their Horde mode way of playing Warhammer 40K. It's a fantastic, different way to play 40K. It really works if somebody has a big collection of one faction to be the Horde army, and then everyone else just needs like 500 points of whatever they want in an army. There's a lot of rules. It's been play tested for a while. We've played it here at the channel. I've spiced it up, and we've done like Space Marine 2 type gameplay versus everything, or just other armies, whatever, in Horde mode. Check it out. Type in Poor Hammer Horde mode on YouTube. You'll find a video that explains it all, and you'll have links to download everything. We'll be doing a battle report here. Hopefully by the end of the year, you'll see one. It'll be a super thematic, fun game, but we're using Horde mode. So just fun ways to spice up Warhammer 40K right now. So that is pretty much everything I have. I see we're coming in at just about a half hour. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the rant. If there are things I missed about ways to spice up 40K, or common complaints that you have, or that you see people have, put them down in the comments. Let's all be chill in the comments. I can't imagine my community typically here. You guys are pretty chill and friendly, which I appreciate. But yeah, I'm just curious to hear what you guys think about it. Do you understand where I'm coming from? Do you agree with where I'm coming from in this? But let me know. Hopefully I'll put some timestamps to break up into different sections about complaints and things. So that's what I got. I just wanted to talk about this because it's been popping up a bit lately, and I wanted to add my 2 cents to it. Overall, I think, yeah, there are some issues with 10th edition, but a lot of these try something different ways, negate a lot of the issues with 10th edition. Not all of them, but a lot of the issues with 10th edition. So that's what I got. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you, members, very much. And we'll see you next time here at Maelstrom Gaming Studios.